The rain slammed against the tall windows of my father's country estate, but the real storm raged inside the room. "Congratulations, Ethan," my father said, handing my younger brother a thick, cream-colored envelope. "You deserve every bit of it. The house, the business, the accounts. You've earned this." I sat across the polished mahogany table, my hands folded in my lap, trying not to tremble. My brother couldn't meet my eyes. His jaw clenched. My mother looked away, pretending to fiddle with her bracelet. My father finally turned to me. "And you," he said with a bitter smirk, "are a useless child. Always chasing shadows, always too soft, too emotional. I can't trust the legacy I built to someone who still thinks with her heart." There were 5 people in that room. Him, my brother, my mother, the lawyer, and me. But for a moment, I felt completely invisible. He didn't even flinch as he slid the papers toward the lawyer. "Go ahead. Let's make it official." "Dad," I whispered. My voice cracked. "Don't do this." He scoffed. "Spare me the theatrics, Lila. You're not a child anymore. You chose your path. You left the business, remember? You said you wanted to do something meaningful." He added air quotes with his fingers, mocking me. "You went off to help strangers, and for what? Nothing. No money. No success. Just wasted years." "You never asked why I left," I said quietly, my voice shaking. "You never once cared." "And I still don't," he snapped. "Because this is the real world, not one of your charity dreams. Your brother stayed. He worked. He showed me loyalty." "He lied to you," I said. "You just didn't want to see it." My father laughed. "Is that jealousy talking?" The lawyer, an older man named Mr. Caldwell, looked increasingly uncomfortable. His fingers tightened on the folder he held. Beads of sweat gathered near his temple. "I think," he said slowly, "before any signatures, there's something you should know." My father narrowed his eyes. "What are you talking about?" Mr. Caldwell cleared his throat and straightened the papers. "There's an amendment to the will. One made years ago, but it was sealed per the request of your late mother. My grandmother. The only person who ever really understood me. The only one who used to say I had more strength in my silence than others did in their loudest moments." "What amendment?" my father asked, suddenly irritated. Mr. Caldwell opened the folder and pulled out a yellow document. "This was added quietly after your mother's final visit to the notary. It was her wish that it only be revealed if you chose to disinherit Lila." My father's face twitched. "That's absurd. She had no authority." "She did," the lawyer said firmly. "She owned 51% of the shares in your family's main estate company before she passed. You never contested it. This clause was legally binding." My brother shifted uncomfortably. My mother froze mid-motion, her hand still resting on her pearls. Mr. Caldwell turned to me. "Miss Lila, would you like me to read it, or would you prefer to do the honors?" I didn't move. I just stared at the envelope in Ethan's hand, the one that held everything my father thought he controlled. "Read it," I said quietly. The lawyer unfolded the paper. "In the event that my granddaughter Lila is deemed unworthy by her father, I hereby grant her full authority over my share of the company to be executed immediately, with all voting rights transferred to her name. This shall override any previous distribution as it pertains to control and decision-making within the estate and company." Silence. The only sound was the rain, now gentler, like it, too, was listening. "What the hell does that mean?" my father growled. "It means," the lawyer said, glancing at me, "that your daughter is now the majority shareholder. And nothing you sign today can override that." My father stood abruptly, his chair screeching against the floor. "This is nonsense. She doesn't even understand the business." "Maybe not your version of it," I said slowly, rising to my feet. "But I know how to lead. I know how to protect people. I know how to build without crushing others. And I know how to be the kind of person Grandma would have been proud of." His face contorted in disbelief, then rage, then confusion. This isn't, she can't." I took a step forward, my voice calm but firm. "You said I was useless, that I brought nothing. But the truth is, I just never needed to prove anything to you. And with that, I turned toward the lawyer. Let's continue, Mr. Caldwell. We've got work to do. My brother lowered his eyes. My mother's lips parted as if to say something, but she said nothing. My father didn't sit back down.
He didn't speak.
He just stood there, frozen in place, as the world he thought he controlled shifted under his feet. The silence in the room was suffocating. My father remained standing, his lips pressed into a hard line, jaw ticking. His knuckles were white where they gripped the chair he'd pushed away. And for the first time in my life, I saw something I never thought I'd see in his eyes. Fear. He didn't yell, didn't scream, but that made it worse. That silence? It wasn't acceptance, it was disbelief. A man whose world had slipped through his fingers while he was too busy belittling others to notice. Please sit, I told him. I meant it. Not with mockery. Not with spite. Because no matter what he'd done, I wasn't him. I wasn't here to humiliate anyone. I just wanted what I'd spent my entire life being denied. Dignity. He didn't move. Instead, my brother Ethan spoke up. Wait, this isn't fair. She left. She didn't want anything to do with the business. She ran off to teach, or rescue orphans, or whatever it was. I volunteered at shelters and helped fund housing for single mothers, I said flatly, my voice still calm. I didn't run away. I found my purpose. Not everyone needs a boardroom to make a difference. That's noble and all, Ethan muttered, still holding the envelope like a lifeline, but you don't know anything about running the company. I know enough to know you've been cooking numbers and funneling funds into a side corporation under your friend's name. Ethan's eyes widened. Lila, my mother gasped, her voice finally rising. That's enough, this is family. We don't need to drag each other down. Oh, now it's family, I said, my voice cracking just slightly. Was it family when you stayed silent as he called me a burden? When he gave everything to Ethan without a word of thanks for what I gave up to keep this family from falling apart behind the scenes? You were never meant for this world, she whispered. I know, I nodded. You all made that very clear. But Grandma thought differently. The lawyer cleared his throat. If I may, Miss Lila, the shares were not her only bequest. She left you something else, something she asked to be delivered only after this moment. He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a small, weathered box. When he opened it, I saw an old, gold-plated compass inside, the kind my grandmother used to keep on her bookshelf. She'd always said it helped her find her way when everything felt lost. Underneath it was a folded letter with my name in her delicate handwriting. My fingers trembled as I opened it. My dearest Lila, if you're reading this, then your father has done exactly what I feared. But don't hate him. He is a product of a world that taught him power is louder than love. You, my sweet girl, you were never weak. You were the quiet strength that held us together. This compass is for you, because your path is your own now. And no matter what anyone says, I trust you to lead. Tears welled in my eyes, but I blinked them back. I looked at Mr. Caldwell. Let's proceed. He handed me the folder with the documents. The ones my father had prepared to erase me. But they meant nothing now. As I signed the acknowledgement of my controlling stake, my father finally spoke. You think this makes you powerful, he said, voice low. You think she gave you the upper hand out of love? She did it to spite me. I looked him in the eyes, finally seeing the broken man beneath the ruthless one. No, I said. She did it because she believed in me, because she knew I'd use this power to heal, not hurt. Then I walked out of that room, my head held high, the weight of years of rejection slowly peeling off my shoulders like rust. But what waited outside that door was not peace. It was war, because power comes with enemies.
And Ethan?
He wasn't done trying to take back what he thought he deserved. I barely made it down the long corridor before I felt the walls closing in. My legs carried me forward, but inside, I was unraveling. Not from regret, from relief. It wasn't revenge I tasted, it was release. Years of silence. Years of walking on eggshells, trying to earn a smile from a man who looked at me like I was a blemish on his legacy. Now, for once, I wasn't the invisible daughter. I was the one holding the compass. Outside the estate, The gray sky had cracked open to a soft drizzle. I stood alone beneath it, letting the cold soak through my blazer. Each drop seemed to wash off the weight I'd carried for too long. Then I heard the door open behind me. "Lila," Ethan called. I turned. He wasn't angry, not yet. But his eyes held that gleam. The one I used to fear. The one that said he was about to turn into someone else. Someone calculated. "You don't have to do this," he said. "Do what?" "Push me out," he said, shrugging. "Come on. We both know that's your next move." "I haven't made a move, Ethan. All I did was stand up." He chuckled, rubbing the back of his neck. "You're not a threat to me, Lila. You think signing a piece of paper makes you powerful? You don't have the spine for leadership." My heart thudded in my chest. But I didn't flinch. "I'm not here to prove anything to you," I said softly. "I'm here to lead with integrity. Something this family has forgotten." He stepped closer. Too close. "I give you 2 months before you come crawling back. The company's not a charity. It's a battlefield." "No," I said, raising my chin. "It's a chance. A platform. And I'll use it to build, not to break." "You really are naive," he muttered, shaking his head. And then he was gone. But something about the way he walked away stuck with me. Something in his eyes, in the way his hands stayed clenched, told me this wasn't the end of his resistance. It was the beginning. The next few days moved like thunderclouds. News spread fast. Employees whispered my name in the halls like it was some ghost returned from exile. Some looked relieved. Others afraid. I didn't change much at first. I wasn't there to fire everyone and paint the walls with my initials. I just wanted to listen. To understand the system my father built from the inside. What I discovered, it wasn't just flawed, it was cruel. Departments pitted against each other. Promotions granted through favoritism. Employee burnout swept under expensive rugs. My father didn't run a company. He ran a throne room, and Ethan had learned well at his feet. One afternoon, I walked into the break room. The staff froze like I'd interrupted a secret meeting. "Please," I said, raising a hand.
"Sit. Eat."
"You're on break." One woman, a janitor named Rosa, stood slowly. We were told not to sit when Mr. Ethan entered. I blinked. "Well, that changes today." She looked stunned, then grateful. That evening, I stayed late reviewing the department reports, combing through files Ethan had tried to bury. I uncovered 3 misappropriated budgets, an entire side deal with a questionable supplier, and a list of terminated employees who'd tried to speak up. It wasn't just greed. It was rotting from the inside. And if I didn't act fast, I'd be the one they blamed when it all came crumbling down. The next morning, Ethan made his move. He stormed into my office with a folder in hand and a wicked grin. "You want to play CEO?" he snapped. "Let's see how you handle a PR nightmare."
He threw the folder onto my desk.
Photos, emails, edited screenshots. "Are you serious?" I asked, flipping through them. "You fabricated this." "Can you prove I did?" he asked smugly. "You really want to destroy me this badly?" "I want what's mine," he snarled. "You were never meant to win." I stood, placing my palms flat on the desk. "I don't want to win, Ethan. I want to heal what you broke. This company could change lives. But you only see it as a weapon."
"I see it as power," he said.
"And I don't intend to lose it." He turned and walked out. I stared after him, heart pounding. I'd underestimated him. This wasn't just a rivalry. It was a war for the soul of our legacy. But I had one weapon he didn't. Truth. And the courage to wield it kindly. The storm hit faster than I expected. Within 48 hours of Ethan's visit, headlines started flooding in. New CEO tied to charity embezzlement. Family Feud exposes ugly secrets behind legacy corporation. Is Lila Gray qualified, or just a puppet with a silver spoon? It didn't matter that the evidence was doctored. The court of public opinion doesn't wait for facts. My inbox filled with cold PR emails. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Shareholders started calling emergency meetings. Some employees avoided eye contact. Others whispered when I passed. I'd barely even begun, and already I was bleeding credibility. At first, I tried to stay calm, tell myself the truth would rise. But late one night, sitting alone in the office, I finally broke. I locked the door, curled up in the corner of the couch, and let the tears come. Ugly ones. Silent ones. The kind that choke you from the inside out. I wasn't crying because they didn't believe me. I was crying because I started wondering if maybe my father had been right. Maybe I wasn't cut out for this world. Then I heard a soft knock on the door. I wiped my face fast, trying to compose myself. One moment. It creaked open anyway. Rosa, the janitor, peeked in. I saw the lights. And she hesitated, holding a small paper cup of hot chocolate. Thought you could use this. I managed a faint smile. You didn't have to. You looked like you needed it, she said gently, walking in and handing it to me. No one ever brought me anything when I cried in this room. So I figured maybe someone should break the cycle. Something inside me cracked again, but in a different way. A softer way. Thank you, I whispered. She sat across from me, folding her hands. Do you want to know the truth about your family, Miss Lila? I looked up. Rosa nodded. I've worked here for 28 years. I've seen more than most. I saw how your father treated people. How Ethan smiled at people when they had use and forgot them the second they didn't. But you. She leaned forward. You always looked me in the eye. I couldn't speak. My throat closed up. You may feel alone now, she continued, but you've got something they'll never have. Loyalty earned through kindness. I blinked rapidly, swallowing the lump in my throat. Why are you helping me? Because someone once helped me when no one else did, she smiled. And because this company doesn't need another king. It needs a healer. The next morning, I walked into the board meeting with fire in my spine and truth in my hands. I let them shout first. Accusations.
Doubts.
Demands for resignation. One shareholder even threatened a lawsuit. When they finished, I stood up and said, if anyone here can prove those documents are real, I'll step down today. Silence. I dropped the original reports on the table. Ones showing Ethan's misappropriated funds, his side company, the hush money paid to bury whistleblowers. Then I turned on the projector. A video of Ethan, recorded 3 weeks ago by security, walking into an office he claimed he'd never been in, plugging in a USB drive, transferring files. The timestamp matched the moment the fake documents were created. The room went quiet. Truth matters, I said softly. But I didn't come here to destroy my brother. I came to fix what he broke. I turned to the lawyer sitting at the end of the table. My grandmother gave me this position not because I was perfect, but because I still believe in people, even the ones who hurt me. So I'm not pressing charges. I'm not suing Ethan, but he is suspended indefinitely and an internal investigation will move forward. Some jaws dropped. Some people nodded. But one man, Mr. Halpern, a retired board member, stood up slowly. I doubted you, he admitted. Thought you were just another soft-spoken idealist. But today, you reminded me why we started this company in the first place. His voice cracked. It wasn't about power. It was about people. And with that, the tide began to shift. Ethan didn't show up the next day, or the one after, but I received a letter, handwritten. Lila, I don't expect forgiveness. I didn't just want power, I wanted to be seen. I always thought you got the love I never did. But maybe you just earned it in a way I didn't understand. I hope someday I figure it out.
Ethan.
I folded the letter and placed it beside the compass. Not everything needed to end with a sword. Some endings whispered, and some beginnings were born from grace. The office felt different now. Not colder, not quieter, more awake. It had been a month since the board meeting, and though the storm hadn't fully cleared, the clouds had parted just enough to let sunlight in. The fake allegations were publicly retracted, and though the media tried to spin it as a lucky break, those who mattered began to see through the noise. Not because I fought back with fists, but because I held the line with integrity. Still, there was one person I hadn't heard from. My father. He'd vanished after that day. No calls. No emails. Not even a lawyer on his behalf. Part of me thought he'd gone off to lick his wounds and live out his days blaming everyone but himself. But one quiet Sunday morning, I walked into my office to find him sitting in the chair across from my desk, hands folded, eyes hollow. "I had to see it with my own eyes," he said. "See what?" "That you didn't burn the place down." I said nothing. He looked older, more tired than I'd ever seen him. The usual arrogance in his posture was gone. For the first time in my life, he didn't look like a man who owned a room. He looked like a man who lost something important. "You were right," he said softly.
About me.
About Ethan. About how this place stopped being about people. I studied him carefully. I didn't know whether to trust the words. "Not yet." "Why now?" I asked. "Why come back at all?" He paused, then pulled something from his coat. A photo. Me and Grandma. I was maybe 12, covered in paint, holding up a terrible drawing. She was laughing. Pure joy. "She always said you were going to change this family," he said. "I just never wanted to believe it. Because if you did, then it meant I failed." "You didn't fail," I said quietly. "You just built the wrong way." He looked down at his hands. "I came today because I need to say something. Something I've never said." He raised his eyes. There was pain there. "Shame." "I'm sorry, Lila. For everything." I held his gaze. Part of me wanted to reject the apology, to say it was too late. But deep down I knew something. Hurt people. And healing starts when just one person chooses not to throw the pain back. So I nodded slowly. "Thank you." He stood up to leave, hesitating at the door. "I don't expect anything from you," he said. "I just needed to say it before I ran out of time." "Don't run out of time," I said gently. "Fix what you can. It's not too late to change." He didn't speak again. Just gave me one last, long look before he slipped out the door. 2 weeks later, Rosa came into my office with a folder. "What's this?" I asked. "A list of every employee your father let go for speaking up. I thought you might want to do something about it." I opened the file, read every name, and then we sent letters to each one, inviting them back, no questions asked. Not because I needed to prove anything, but because legacy isn't about bloodlines. It's about how you leave people feeling when you walk away. Months later, the company looked different now. Not shinier, but warmer. Ethan never returned. But we did speak once over coffee. We didn't rehash the past. We just talked, two siblings trying to understand each other. And maybe rebuild. My father kept his distance. But once, I received a donation receipt in the mail. A 7-figure sum, made in my name, to the women's shelter I used to work for. No note, no signature, just his quiet way of trying to be better. And that was enough. Because in the end, I didn't get revenge. I got something far more powerful. Respect. Peace. And a future no one could take away. And when I walk into that boardroom now, I don't hear whispers. I hear footsteps behind me, people who trust me to lead them somewhere worth going. All because one day a man said, "You're a useless child." And I smiled, stood tall, and proved him wrong, without ever becoming him.